Democrats are cutthroat. If they want something, they go after it.
Prediction I have is that subpoenas will be necessary and probably in short order.
When you have the investigations on top of investigations, people go, all right, just move on already, fix the economy. However,
let's watch a Fox News panel as they proudly parade around more Trump-led investigations into his political enemies, something they pretended was gravely wrong just 5 months ago. So strap in, leave us a like on the video if you can. It boosts us in the algorithm, helps the channel out tremendously, and let's see what we're getting ourselves into.
We're going to request that 4 staffers that we've identified as the main gatekeepers for the Biden White House, that they come and answer our questions. We're also requesting that Dr. O'Connor come. That's the first step towards a subpoena.
Well, tell me first who these 4 people
voluntarily.
are. Who are the 4?
These are the unelected bureaucrats that we believe had an overwhelming influence over Joe Biden and could have possibly been serving as de facto presidents of the United States.
Would you expect to subpoena Hunter and Dr. Jill?
Yeah, I think we're going to start with these and see where the road goes. You know, what I said back during the end of the Biden administration, that our sources were telling us that Hunter Biden was spending more time in the Oval Office than Joe Biden.
Wow.
I said on some shows that Hunter Biden was essentially the de facto chief of staff. This is a huge problem.
Remember when MAGA said targeting political enemies was wrong, and now just 100 days into Trump's presidency, a Democratic judge has been arrested, a Democratic congresswoman has been arrested, a Democratic mayor was arrested, Comey's being investigated, and now subpoenas are going out to Biden's inner circle because, like, I'm so confused as to what the crime being alleged here to where a subpoena would be needed. I mean, the conspiracy in itself is asinine. To take the leap from Biden was old and not as sharp as he once was, and, you know, he was the leader of the country and at one point a candidate, so maybe they weren't disclosing that to the extent that we would have liked, to then get to, oh, he's dementia riddled and other people were running the country is insane, as if there's like an on-off switch to cognitive disabilities. Like, I would implore anyone who believes that to work in the field of cognitive disabilities for more than a day. But like, even if there was some cover up here, what is the crime? Presidents are allowed to be in bad health. You can run for president. You could run for re-election if you're in bad health. And if something is to happen to you, it's kind of the reason the VP is there. Like, the idea there's some crime here is insane. These people are literally just obsessed.
Anthony Bernal, who was the top watchdog essentially for Jill Biden. You have Annie Tomasini, she was the head of Oval Office operations, her deputy, Ashley Williams, Kevin O'Connor, the doctor, and then Neera Tanden, who was the head of Domestic Policy Council. Those are the names. So these are people who, some of whom are alleged to have cocooned the president. Nice letters and kind requests to come to Congress might work, but a prediction I have is that subpoenas will be necessary and probably in short order.
Kaylee, Republicans are just too nice. They send a letter and they wait for a response. Democrats don't operate like that. Democrats are cutthroat. If they want something, they go after it. Republicans would be smart to maybe follow that example, especially when it comes to something as important as this. I understand the investigation fatigue. I think a lot of Americans, they want to see accountability, but sometimes when you have the investigations on top of investigations, people go, all right, just move on already, fix the economy. However,
I don't get what she's saying the lie here was. Like, let's forget the fact that Democrats, one, could have prosecuted Trump back in 2021 or 2022 and drugged their feet doing so, then let him get held in contempt of court 11 or 12 times, never went to jail. He was sentenced for 34 felonies, didn't include jail time in that sentence. Letitia James gave him grace in paying his bond or whatever it was from the fraud case. But Democrats are mean and Republicans are nice, even though they've now came after 3 or 4 Democratic lawmakers in a span of 3 months. But like, they're pretending they've been vindicated in saying Biden has dementia or something, when, like, we all know and knew he wasn't as sharp as he once was. Most of us didn't want him to run again because of that. It comes down to the fact that we were still willing to support him over Trump. I'm supporting prostate cancer, even dementia-riddled Biden over Trump, let alone cognitively disabled. I think, again, it comes down to the right preferring the person while the left prefers the policy. I personally don't even care if it wasn't Joe Biden himself signing the bills and doing the deals, as long as the agenda of policies that got him elected were what was being enacted. And that's literally all I value from a president, is the policies, which is exactly what we got. I mean, I could agree to some conspiracy if, like, Biden ran on one thing and then enacted a totally different agenda, and then we found out also it wasn't him doing it and this and that, but it's just not the truth. And we also know for an absolute fact that he was involved in these bill negotiations, the hostage swaps as late as 2024. So it kind of falls apart with the least bit of critical thinking.
Just focus on inflation. I get that. But the more I look into this and the more I see the Biden connection to policy and what happened to you, that's why it matters. Harris, this anecdote that I found in this Alex Thompson book, there was an immigration meeting that took place, and I believe it was in 2022. So the administration had at one point considered cracking down on the border, apparently. They decided not to do that. No one knew what happened to the plan, who changed the plan. Well, one cabinet secretary present at that meeting where Biden apparently had, quote, a glitch, believed that Biden's limitations had given his aides more power to steer the administration. If you had, this is a direct quote from a former cabinet member, if you had a 20 years younger Joe Biden, I think he would have been more on top of the issue of immigration and what was going on, the cabinet secretary said. Well, 11 million people got into the country. Young women lost their lives.
This sounds real nice from a MAGA perspective until you realize Biden and Democrats had an immigration bill ready to go their first week in office, and it died in committee because Republicans refused to even come to the table and hear about it, where 10 Republican votes would have been needed to have it passed. This includes the Republican committee chair, Chuck Grassley, saying it was dead on arrival, and even immigration hardliner Marco Rubio saying, well, we have to focus on COVID first. None of us are coming to the table for an immigration bill, which, by the way, is what Biden legitimately did have to focus on a lot of his presidency. And he did a great job steering us out of, better than any other country. But even during that tenure, he enlisted Kamala to stem migration from Central American countries, which he successfully did. Immigration from those countries dropped after she met with them. And then he again tried to do a bipartisan approach to pass legislation on the border through Congress. Trump killed it so he could run on it. Biden then did executive order. The idea that he did nothing on the border, that he even opened it, is entirely fairy tale. We had COVID creating humanitarian crises around the globe, which spiked immigration. This is why it spiked under Trump, and the trend just continued under Biden because he tried to pass legislation and Republicans refused. So if there's any immigration crisis that Republicans want to point to, it's entirely their fault for being unwilling to legislate.